6 officers involved in the January abuse case of 2 black men in Rankin County appeared in court today to face state charges. 12 News' Tia McKenzie, she is live from the Rankin County Court with more on today's hearing.
Tal, the courtroom was packed to maximum capacity as those 6 officers pleaded guilty once again, this time to state charges. Brett McAlpin, Jeffrey Middleton, Christian Dedman, Hunter Elwood, Daniel Opdyke, and Joshua Hartfield each entered the Rankin County Courthouse, wrists shackled to their waists in jail suits. Prosecutors today described the heinous acts that occurred during the raid on a Braxton home. The officers received word that black men were staying with a white woman there. The officers spoke with each other in code phrases such as work easy and no bag mugshots before raiding the home, beating and torturing Michael Jenkins and Eddie Parker. Jenkins was shot in the mouth during the encounter. The 6 officers pleaded guilty to several federal charges earlier this month.
If they pleaded guilty, it's because the case against them was so surefire.
It was so crazy.
It was so clear cut
that if they pleaded non-guilty, they would get even more.
The cops almost never plead guilty to these kinds of cases, but in this case, not only were these guys 100% guilty, but the people prosecuting them already had all the evidence.
And came back inside, he observed MJ and EP covered in chocolate syrup and other liquids. Shortly after, MJ and EP were ordered to strip naked and shower off. Their handcuffs were removed. After MJ and EP showered off and changed into clean underwear and sweats, they were handcuffed again and brought to the side bedroom adjacent to the carport. The officers began discussing the comparative strength of their respective tasers, and they decided to test their tasers on MJ and EP to see which one was the most powerful.
What did a person do to deserve this?
Sleep with the caucus queens. Let's carry on.
What? Well, no, we're not carrying on. That's all he did?
Mm-hmm.
Just because he was sleeping with a girl?
Obviously, the white woman who was involved in this case is probably related to one of the officers.
Oh.
And if I remember correctly, this was like in Mississippi or some shit.
You have to disagree with this factual basis. You have to disagree with what she said.
Okay, so they admit to everything that she said in regards to tasering the dudes and doing. As I understand it from some of the details, it even involved some bedroom toys being inserted in some of the men. Firearms being inserted in their mouths, and one of the firearms ended up going off while inside the mouth of the person, thus blowing off a portion of their face. The person did survive, but with extra holes in them.
The arrest was made against you is a use of force or intimidation. They caused you to change your plea not guilty to death. Promises are hope for reward that make you change your plea from not guilty to death. After speaking to your attorney, you want to decide to plead guilty.
At this point, he's just basically reading out the plea, letting him know, like, you know what it is that you're pleading guilty to, and the guy's accepting everything. The lawyers have already had to hash this out.
Rankin County Sheriff Brian Bailey released a statement in part. I believe today's guilty pleas show the community that our system of checks and balances is effective. As for those 6 officers, they are expected to be sentenced in mid-November. Live in Rankin County, Tia McKenzie, 12 News.
Thank you so much, Tia. Well, Rankin County Sheriff Brian Bailey also included in his statement on today's court proceedings that, quote, the Rankin County Sheriff's Office continues to evaluate and modify its policies, procedures, and training for all Sheriff's Office employees.
So, any initial thoughts?
I just need to.
Yeah, every time.
It's a lot. They did all those. Was it sentencing?
Well, there's state charges. Let's see here. And there's some federal charges. So I gotta admit, this is probably gonna be a minimum of 12 years. Let's see. So I'll just read out some of the stuff. The former officers pleaded guilty August 3rd to federal charges in the case in which the U.S. prosecutor said the former officers kicked down the door of a home in Braxton, Mississippi, where the black men were living, and then basically began assaulting them for 2 hours, both physically and the sexual nature.
God damn.
The officers did not have a warrant, and some called themselves the GOON Squad.
They don't have a warrant for what? That booty hole? I don't think a warrant. I think that even with a warrant.
Actually, you can go inside booty holes with a warrant.
I understand, but with sex stores and stuff like that, Jesus Christ. I don't think that's the kind of warrant we're looking for.
All right. Hey, officer, I want some booty. Now I'm going to have some booty. Now, we can either do this the legal way, or we can do this the hard way. But I'm going to have some booty. Sorry, I don't know why I'm doing that.
Because I was thinking about the same thing when you won't go.
All right, so they call themselves the GOON squad because of their willingness to use excessive force and not report it, according to a federal charging document. Okay, so they had a reputation in this department. The 6 officers were charged with a combined 13 felonies in connection with the torture and the physical abuse of the 2 men that night. The lawyer for one of the guys says he takes full responsibility for his part on the horrific harms perpetrated by Mr. Jenkins and Mr. Parker, the victims, and is prepared to face the consequences of his misconduct. The deputies, in their repeated use of racial slurs in the course of their violent acts, were oppressive and hateful against their African American victims. So there were slurs used against this, and there wasn't part of a huge racial component to how all this started. Defendants were motivated on the basis of race and the color of the skin of the persons they went after. Okay, here we go. According to federal charging documents, Dedman texted Elward, Middleton, and Odd Pike, these are officers, on January 24th about going to the property in Braxton to resolve a complaint received by McAlpin. Okay? McAlpin's white neighbor told him several black men were staying at a white woman's home and reported seeing suspicious behavior.
No, it has nothing to do with one of them fucking an officer's wife. I thought that's what you meant. It's not even that.
I'm going to be honest with you. Somebody's fucking that woman.
Yeah, somebody's fucking that woman. But that was not no officer's wife. That was the neighbor.
Someone's girl. That girl and that officer involved.
Is that written?
No.
Then I'm not going to say that.
I will.
Why?
Because it's not just a white woman and a black man. That's not that. It's that woman is involved with one of the dudes. Do you understand there's no relation? They just saw a random black man arrive.
No, they had a complaint from the neighbor. That's what you just read.
By the neighbor, yes. But if the neighbor knows the officer
the neighbor's like, yo! Someone fucking yo, wow.
Or one of the women and they all know each other. That's how it is in some of these neighborhoods.
They all know each other.
Okay. Dedman warned the deputies there might be surveillance cameras on the property, telling them to knock on the door instead of knocking it down if they saw any. The document stated. Otherwise, they could barge in without a warrant. The document continued. No bad mugshots, he said, meaning prosecutor said the defendants could use excessive force on parts of the body that would not be seen in a mugshot.
Yeah.
Avoiding a surveillance camera above the front door, Dedman, Odd Pike, and Elward broke open the carpet door while Hartfield kicked open the back door. The document stated they encountered Parker, who was living there to help take care of the woman who owned the property, and his friend Jenkins, who was staying there temporarily. Over the next 2 hours, the 2 men were subjugated to grueling violence at the hands of these officers. They were reportedly tased, called racial slurs. The officers poured milk, alcohol, and chocolate syrup in their mouths. Elward threw eggs at the men, and Dedman poured grease on Parker's hands. Eventually, Elward moved a bullet from his gun, forced Jenkins onto his knees, and put the gun in his mouth. Elward fired the gun, which did not discharge, then racked the slide, put the gun back in Jenkins' mouth, and pulled the trigger again.
Okay, that was intentional.
Then racked the slide, put the gun back in Jenkins' mouth, pulled the gun back, pulled the trigger again. According to documents, the bullet lacerated Jenkins' tongue, broke his jaw, and went out through his neck. According to the charging documents, the officer then devised a cover story discussing a planting gun Middleton had in his patrol car on Jenkins. That means that they already have guns waiting to be planted on people so that they can make sure the story gets out. Now, here's what's really twisted, and this is a detail that I think is probably most key in this whole thing. This went on for months without nobody even noticing until one of the officers came forward and then snitched on the other guys. Meaning, they would have gotten away with it if it wasn't for those stooping, meddling kids. I feel like that's from a cartoon somewhere. But if it wasn't for that one officer who snitched.
That's
so
crazy.
When people are like, what? These kinds of things happen more often than you might actually believe. Maybe less than some people claim, but definitely more often than many of you believe. You just never can hear about it because the proof is oftentimes not possible. Yeah. When these guys go through these processes, their burden of proof to be able to prove that they didn't do anything wrong is not that high. He just had to plant a gun that they already had staked away. All it required was for someone to break the line and say this actually happened for things to change. But you have to consider, how many times do they not do this? The fact that they even have a reputation as a GOON squad means that they've definitely crossed that line so many times before.
And they know about it.
And people in the department know about it.
And they
right?
brag about it. And they not do nothing.
So that's just something to be mindful of. But instead, Elward planted a BB gun. The officers discarded one shell casing, the document stated. Hartfield threw the men's soiled clothes in the woods, took the hard drive from the home surveillance system before throwing it in a creek, according to the document. Like they went through all that trouble for what? You gotta imagine they gotta have some connection with either the defendants or the person, the woman. That has to be one of those two. I refuse to believe they just saw two men and then they went through all that trouble and tortured. There's something else, there's an element to this, and that's why I don't think they can talk about it, unfortunately. But it felt very personal. Probably won't be able to gather more information because the court filings probably still have to go through to some degree.
It has. We'll get it after everybody's prosecuted, probably.
Yeah. So we'll see. We'll have to find out. But I'm betting on 13 years. After that's what I think they're probably going to end up serving and get out with good behavior. I'll probably be sentenced to like 20.
Yeah, nobody died
for attempted murder.
Nobody died, so it's not like a 25 to life thing.
No, attempted is very good, and then the additional charges, and depending on how the state charges work, it could be concurrent. So they might have to do the time for the attempted, and then everything else as well.
Consecutive, you mean?
Yeah.
I wouldn't know how these
You'd have to research state law in Mississippi.
I'm not that good in that.
Yeah. What do you think about the case, or anything in the story? What do you want to say?
It's kind of weird. There's definitely elements that are missing.
Okay.
Still, nonetheless, that's a bit crazy. Which go back to what Abbas said a couple of times. Don't be messing with nobody's wives. You said that a couple of times.
Yeah. I don't know. I think especially depending on where you live at, don't be messing with white women. And y'all think it's a meme sometimes, but in some places that's actually just true.
Nah, I ain't got much to say about that.
Cool. I don't know. I can't get over that one detail. That one detail just always sticks out to me.
Yeah.
They went about their jobs like nothing. They had these guys ready to plant on people, and they only got caught because somebody snitched and had a conscience.
And you only.
Oh, I don't even know if it's that. Maybe he snitched for different reasons. I don't know why he did, but he did. So at the end of the day, that's the only thing. So if that's the difference between bad officers getting caught a lot of the times and not getting caught, like, how does that make me feel reassured? Because I know most of the time they're not going to do that, and it's not even something that's shocking to me. You know, like even in the military, like some people will cover for others because why? You know, the brotherhood or whatever it is stronger oftentimes than the duty. Now, for some people, that's not the case. The duty comes first. But for a lot of them, it's not. And so I think that's the part that doesn't feel very reassuring.
They caught 6. How many more?